Welcome to Lesson 3, your lesson on leash handling. Now, what is there to handling a leash, you say? I'm so glad you asked. We'll go over some skills for holding the leash safely and securely, how to prevent yourself from getting tangled or tripping, and how to shorten the leash quickly to give yourself more leverage when you have a dog who's lunging or might start lunging soon. Here's our agenda for this lesson. We'll practice holding the leash, shortening it quickly when trouble is coming. We'll talk about how to maintain a good hold on the leash when moving around, and we'll touch on managing 2 leashes at once for those of you using 2 leashes. All right, let's talk about how to hold the leash. Here's what we generally recommend. Of course, if this doesn't work for you for any reason and you already have a method you like, that's great too. Instead of putting your whole hand through the leash handle and wrapping the leash around your hand, which can lead to injuries, we recommend just having your thumb through the leash handle and then closing your hand around it. Any extra slack should be gathered up in the hand that's holding the leash handle, and that hand should be near your center of gravity, near your belly button. Your other hand can be lower down on the leash, closer to your dog, to give you more control. Now, in contrast, here are some common leash handling mistakes. Having the leash in only one hand when your dog is pulling or lunging can make it hard to hang on to them. If your arm gets extended like this away from your body, you can get pulled around much more easily by your dog. And I have to mention, although this is just a stock photo, please don't use flexi leads. They can cause serious injuries to people and dogs. Okay, go grab your leash and try this. Don't attach your dog to the leash yet. Just get a feel for holding the leash this way and refer back to those slides. After a couple minutes, come on back and we'll move on to some more leash handling. All right, now let's talk about shortening the leash quickly. If your dog looks like this on the end of a tight leash, it can be hard to pull them back or control them if they have all 6 feet of leash to work with, especially if you have a large or strong dog. So I'm going to show you 2 options for quickly shortening the leash. One for gathering up slack before your dog is on a tight leash, so maybe you don't end up here. And a second one that you can use if your dog is already on a tight leash or pulling or lunging. So have your leash ready. We've built in some short practice sessions into this video. First, let's look at gathering in that slack when your dog isn't yet pulling or lunging like crazy. Now for these exercises, again, I don't want you to attach the leash to your dog yet. Instead, loop the leash around a doorknob or some heavy piece of furniture. So here Melissa is using a doorknob to anchor the leash. She's showing you that she's putting her thumb through the leash handle. Then she's going to gather in the leash by folding the slack up into that hand. Notice that she's ending up with that second hand, like we talked about, lower on the leash where it would be close to her dog. Let's watch that a couple more times. And now in this next video, I'm just seeing how fast I can do this with a 15-foot line. You will want to do this quickly at times. Now, what the heck is this for? If I'm going to put work into something, I know I want to be told why I'm doing it. We'll practice in more real-life situations later, but here are a couple short video clips showing examples of when you might use this quick leash shortening method on a walk. So here, Melissa is walking her dog. She sees a trigger coming at her fast, and she quickly shortens the leash using that gathering in method just to be safe so that Zuma can't reach that kid if she lunges. So this leash shortening exercise does have some good practical uses. Now pause the video for a minute and give this a try. Attach the leash to a door or heavy furniture and practice that gathering in the slack slowly several times until it feels easy. Then speed it up a bit. Maybe during the week, see how fast you can get at this and keep practicing until it feels easy. When you're done with this little practice session, leave the leash where it is. You're going to need it there for the next exercise. Okay, so you just practiced a method of quickly shortening the leash and keeping your dog close to you before they lunge or pull, when the leash is still loose. But what do you do if your dog is already at the end of the leash, pulling or lunging? You know how tough it can be to hold on to them or move them back closer to you if they have all 6 feet of leash. So let's look at what you can do that makes getting out of this situation easier. Again, you'll attach the leash to a door, something heavy. Melissa put her thumb through the leash handle. She's standing far enough away from the door that the leash is tight, and then she's walking up the tight leash hand over hand. And again, she's ending up with that second hand lower on the leash, close to where the dog would be. So instead of moving the dog back to you, you're moving yourself to the dog. It's much easier. All right, go ahead and pause the video and practice that, say, 5 times. Then come on back for the rest of the lesson. Now, I bet since you got the leash out, your dog is wondering what you're up to and can they do it too? So don't worry, it's time to include your dog in the game. For these next exercises, you'll need your dog in their harness and leashed up in the house. You'll need some treats or a toy if your dog prefers toys. Now remember how we just talked about holding the leash? You had your thumb through the handle, any slack gathered up in that hand, which was about at your belly button, and your other hand was a bit lower on the leash as long as you weren't delivering treats. We're going to practice that now in real life. So here's Melissa just showing how she's holding the leash with a dog attached to it, thumb through the leash handle. And if she's going to deliver treats, she's going to do it with that hand that's lower on the leash. If she needed to keep that leash shorter and still get treats, she could have gathered that slack into the hand that has the handle of the leash and then reached for the treats. Okay, now we'll practice that method of gathering in the leash slack again when there isn't any tension on the leash, this time with your dog attached. And here's what this looks like. You don't want to tighten the leash up on your dog unless there's a good reason to. Lots of dogs find leash tension unpleasant, and it can even cause them to react when they might not have otherwise. So you'll see Melissa's taking a step closer to her dog as she brings in the leash slack. And remember, your second hand is staying lower on the leash near your dog, unless you're using it to get treats or something. Okay, spend just 2 minutes practicing holding the leash and gathering in the slack several times with your dog actually attached to the leash. And again, this is a little weird, so give them a treat every now and again. All right, now let's walk around a bit, do some turns, just to get used to holding the leash this way, especially if this is new to you. In this first example, Melissa wants to turn around and keep Zuma on the side of her closer to the camera. So Zuma started out on her left, and after the turn, she'll be on her right. If you're going to do this, it's easiest to switch your leash hands, so she'll transfer the handle to her other hand here. Now, if you're going to keep the dog on the same side of you, they started on your right and they're going to stay on your right, then you don't have to switch your hands. Your dog will just walk a little arc around you, like you see Jasper doing here. You don't have to shorten the leash as I do during the turn right here, but sometimes it's helpful if you're in a hurry and want to make sure your dog's coming with you. All right, pause the video again, spend just a minute or two practicing walking and turning in the house with your dog on leash, keeping in mind where your hands are on the leash. All right, now I'll just briefly touch on using 2 leashes. I know most of you are not doing this, so I'll spend just a minute on it for those of you who do need that extra safety backup. Walking with 2 leashes, each attached to a different piece of equipment, can be a nice safety measure when walking reactive dogs, especially big, strong dogs. But managing 2 leashes does present additional challenges. It can be helpful to attach 1 leash to a leash belt, then you only have 1 leash handle to worry about. There is more leash to trip on for sure when working with 2 leashes, so you need to pay more attention to them. One thing that can make handling 2 leashes easier is to gather both in that lower hand that's closer to the dog. That keeps them out from underfoot for both of you. Now, if you're using 2 leashes out on walks, practice the exercises in this lesson first with just 1 leash until you're really comfortable. Then add the second leash. All right, congrats. You have finished this lesson and you're well on your way to becoming an expert leash handler. Enjoy the exercises and I'll see you in your 2-minute training videos.